So we understand now that Hannah is in a position where she has to persevere beyond what other individuals think of her. I need to give you a little bit of advice. When God has his hand on your life, there are going to be thousands of experiences that come negative towards you. Amongst that group, it's always going to be people who are the most closest to you to hurt you the most. At the end of the day, she had to deal with somebody in her own house looking at her sideways. And even though her husband did the best he could to compensate what others were doing, it would not satisfy the desire that was in Hannah's heart. I need you to know that when God has a call on your life, when you have a burning desire in your heart, there is nothing that anybody can do to compensate that desire. You got to pursue God. You got to chase after him no matter what is going on in your life. As the preacher laid the foundation, she came to the temple. She sought God. She sought God in a way that made her look crazy. When you come into the house of God next time, I need you to seek God in a way that may seem odd to other people, but we're not afraid of what they're saying behind our back. We're not afraid of what they are trying to do because we want God to impregnate us with something so powerful, so mighty, and so wonderful that the enemy cannot even contain. At the end of the day, because she began to pursue God in the way that she should have pursued God, the enemy could not contain Samson until Samson broke the covenant. So let's look at Samuel, until the enemy could not contain Samuel. At the end of the day, Samuel is pressing towards what God wants him to be. But he wouldn't have gotten there if it had not been for Hannah. Now, I need you to understand, Samuel would refuse to break the covenant even when King Saul would do so. He stayed in there, all because he had a praying mother. Hannah's pursuit for God, despite whatever else was going on, Hannah's pursuit for God is where God wanted her to be. Now, understand something. When you pursue God on a level that frustrates other people, you're going to have, from time to time, individuals who try their best to take you off course, to try their best to throw you off. When she was praying in that temple, I got to tell you, even the preacher, in a way, tried to throw her off. I said, man, what's wrong with you? Are you drunk? You're praying to God like you're intoxicated. Are you okay? She had to look at him and say, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm chasing after God. It may seem weird to you, but I'm chasing after God. Are you willing to chase after God? Even though it may seem weird, even though it may seem frustrating, even though there are people who will try to shut you down, are you chasing after God? Brothers and sisters, pursuing God may cause an irritation in the lives of a whole lot of folks. Pursuing God may cause other people to try to come at you in a way that you can't even imagine. We're dealing now with a woman of God who made up in her mind that I'm going to chase after God no matter what. People can talk about me all they want to. Samuel refused to break the covenant. He refused to break the purpose for why he was here. Can I tell you something? God has already established a reason for you to be here. Don't break that. Don't separate yourself from that. The enemy can't contain you when you are pursuing after God. There are people who may reject you when you begin to pursue after God. Don't sway. At the end of the day, you've got a call and a responsibility on your life. The calling that is on your life is so powerful and so amazing. Now, let's be honest. This does not come without conflict. In order for her to get Samuel, she had to become obedient to God. She had to obey God. Now, I got to talk to you about obedience real quick, because a lot of times we think that praise is what's going to bring us through. No, it's obedience. This woman was willing to do whatever it took in order to receive the man of God, in order to be impregnated with what God wanted her to be impregnated with. Hannah was willing to look odd and weird or stand out in the crowd just to get what God wanted her to have. Can I tell y'all something? If you want to really, really get on God's good side, look the enemy in the face and say, I don't even care. Whatever you say about me, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't frustrate me. I refuse to allow it to, because I've got a purpose in God. And I know that something great is going to be birthed in me. I am going to be impregnated with the purposes of God no matter what the adversary says. So here she is, obeying the man of God, trusting that what God said is going to come to pass. She goes home and she does what is required of her. She makes sure that she controls what goes in her and what comes out of her. She had discipline. That then leads me to obedience. You cannot be obedient to God unless you are disciplined. Discipline does not always happen overnight. You got to put it into practice. You got to surrender yourself to God. You got to constantly subject yourself to flesh. Obedience is twofold, right? It's hearing what God is saying, right? And then it's doing what he said. I like to call it active listening. There are a lot of people who will talk to you, or you can talk to rather, but they're not listening to you, right? You're talking to them and they're doing some other things. You're talking to them and they're pursuing other things. But an active listener will stop and listen. I need you to put that right there and put a pin on it. An active listener will stop and listen. Are you stopping what you're doing, or are you hearing God and you just keep on moving? You keep going. Become an active listener. I need you to pause. Stop everything around you. Take a second and have a moment with God. Shut things down so that you can get communication from God. The voice of God came through the man of God. It's important for us to listen to our spiritual leaders. Pastor Thompson has led a great example. He's instructed us in many ways, ways that others cannot. The question is, are we willing to listen? You know, it's frustrating for me as a parent when I tell my daughter, or I'm instructing my daughters to do something, and while I'm telling them to do something, they're sitting back and, well, they want to watch TV, or they're sitting back and they don't want to stop what they're doing to listen to me. It feels like I'm being ignored. When you half listen to what God is saying, sometimes it feels like you're ignoring him. I need you to pause. Take time with God. Go into prayer. But when you go into prayer, shut everything down. Leave your cell phone on the outside. Don't worry about what other people are thinking or saying. Chase after him with all of your heart. Shut the outside things out, and make sure that you allow the inward man to speak to God. So here's this woman of God, and she's pursuing after God in a way that's unconventional. But after she pursues God, she has to have the discipline to receive what God has for her. The question is not, does God have a blessing for you? The question is, are you disciplined enough to receive what God has for you? He's waiting to give you multiple blessings. Samuel was not the only child that she received. He's waiting to give her multiple blessings, but are you willing to stop and actively listen to what God is saying? You can't listen to God and people too. Let me say that again. You cannot listen to God and people too. There are always going to be individuals who will try to come at you. Always going to be folks who are going to try to tear you down. It ain't going nowhere. They're everywhere. They're constantly chasing after the children of God. It's who we are. It's the light that's on the inside of you. you attract adversary. You're not the only one. There are thousands and hundreds of thousands of people of God who are serving God, who are tracking the same adversity, because we're the light of the world. An enemy does not want our light to shine. He will chase us down to the ends of the earth if he could to try to stop that light. But that light that's on the inside of you is shining so bright because you're willing to be obedient to God. In other words, you're not interested in just praising God, but you want to praise God with obedience. Now, there's a lot of people that will tell you that praise will bring you through. I want to tell you that praise will not bring you through unless you are obedient to God. You can praise God all day long, but if you're not willing to listen to what God instructs you to do, then you will miss the mark. Praise is only part of the equation, but you got to have discipline. You got to have obedience. When she got up, she moved in faith. She became disciplined to what the man of God is saying. And then she pursued. What she brought forth would change the whole world. God is saying, if you pursue me, what you bring forth is going to change the entire world. There's something on the inside of you that's so creative and so divine and so God-driven that the enemy is praying that you stop praying, that you worry about what other people have to say, that you get the antagonist and start listening to them. She had to control herself. She had to discipline herself. She had to pursue after God. When she pursued after God, she was able to receive what God had for her. Much like her, a lot of us, we're in pursuit. Now listen, pursuing God and seeking after him because there's something inside of you, it may not come overnight. Can I say that again? It may not come overnight. You got to have patience. All right. So a lot of us have decided that we want to maybe trim our body weight, right? I'm one of them, right? Just got to get myself healthy. Not because of people, but because it's just good for me. Got in there, first day, tired, wore out, legs sore, crying, frustrated. I ain't coming back. This is for the birds. I'm good. My doctor didn't ask me to do it anyway. I don't even know why I'm doing this. My wife loves me, all of my roles. I might as well just chill and just enjoy life as it is. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel good. I had to break past the pain. Brothers and sisters, if you want something from God, you're going to have to break past all the pain of criticism, the pain of haters, the pain of liars, the pain of people talking about you right now, looking at you right now, wondering, why in the world are you where you are? There should be somebody else doing it. God is telling you, get past the pain. Press towards the goal. Do you not think that it was painful for Christ to get to Calvary? Do you not think that it was a struggle for him to obey God there in the Garden of Gethsemane? He had to have a made-up mind that beyond the pain, there is something powerful and purposeful that's coming out of me. Beyond the pain, there's something glorious that's going to give God the glory like he deserves. I am telling you that after you hear God talk to you, and after you have prayed, and after you have tried God, and after you have pursued after him, there's going to become an overwhelming, frustrating pain. Pain of people getting on your nerves, pain of family members mistreating you or doing you wrong, pain of individuals constantly trying to derail who you are. But there is something on the inside of you that is so powerful, and God is saying, I'm ready to develop what's in you if you push past the pain. I'm here to tell you that the moment that you accept God's calling, the moment that you say, yes, Lord, I will do what you tell me to do, the moment that you do that and push past the pain, God is saying, I've got something very powerful and in store for you. It's going to defy the odds. It's going to break the barriers. It's going to keep my covenant. It's going to make sure that it stands strong when everybody else rejects it, when everybody else comes against it. It's going to withstand the end of time. It's going to be written in heaven that you decided to listen to God, obey his word, push past that pain. You're going to get it on all sides, brothers and sisters. There's going to be frustration and levels of pain, mentally, physically, and spiritually. But you got to push past it. As I close today, I got to tell you that despite all of the criticism this woman endured, she was able to push past the pain. Despite all of the accusations that came at her, she was able to push past the pain. There may be moments in your life that you're feeling levels of anxiety right now because things are not going the way you thought they should go. I need you to push past all that other individuals are saying and doing towards you and understand that what God has for you is for you. There are going to be obstacles in your life that you have never seen before. There are going to be tragedies that you might experience, but I need you to push past the pain. There are individuals who have lost loved ones more recently than others. But there is a story behind all that you are going through. There's a testimony that you have. And that testimony is that if it had not been for the Lord that was on your side, enemies would have swallowed you up quickly. But God stayed in there. When everybody else bailed out on you, when people thought you were crazy, when the preacher came at you, when the minister, when the brothers and sisters in Christ came at you, you hung in there. I am telling you right now that despite how it looks, God has what you're asking for. You're pursuing him and you're praying for it. You have had antagonists around you while you're pursuing God, talking about you night and day, just like Hannah had. But you are diligent. You're pursuing God right now. If you weren't, you wouldn't be watching this broadcast. You wouldn't be tuned in. And the reason why you're tuned in, it's not because of me. It's not because Brother Elder Minister Cordis or Elder Cordis. It's not because of anyone else. It's because you want to be tuned in to God. And because you decided to tune into God, God has a blessing for you. In the next 60 seconds, I want to remind you that you're always going to have something coming against you, whether you're pursuing God or not. But if you are pursuing God, whatever comes against you will not be able to prosper. For no weapon formed against you can prosper if you are pursuing God. When you pursue God, you're going to have to be obedient to him. You can't just ask and go do what you want to do. You can't just ask and live your life. You got to ask and discipline your mind and your spirit and your heart to do what God says to do. Then comes the pain or the agony of serving God. And we all get tired, but we got to push past that. When she was able to push past the pain, she was able to deliver something, a weapon that God formed in her that was able to defy the odds, that was able to keep the covenant of God, to serve God's people, and to anoint the men and women of God. Brothers and sisters, there's something inside of you that's birthing right now because you ask God. But are you disciplined enough to nurture it, to nourish it, to take care of it? And then after you do that, when the criticism and the agony comes, will you push past that pain? And will you then receive and raise up what God has gifted you to have? God bless you. Heaven smile on you. Listen, I'm praying that you pursue God. I'm praying that you push past and beyond all tribulation and trouble. And I am praying that you remain focused on what God is calling you to do. God bless you. Heaven smile on you. We'll see you next week.